Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you, Christelle. Thank you for this invitation. For us, it's always a pleasure and always important to show our work, which is really about this question of hosting life in architecture. And what is important for us is that we want to realize it, not only conceive this as a concept or as a project, but really build this kind of architecture. So first, I want to share with you the three different words that is really important for our office, which is the notion of déjà là in French, which means already existing. I mean, in everywhere you look about a site or architecture, it's really important to consider the déjà là for us. The déjà là is very important, and for us, architecture is very important to create also common ground, le commun en français, which is what you share with other people. And then the last things, which is not the least one, but very important, it's hosting life. It's working not only for human, but also for every part of the living. We know that in 2050, we will be about 10 billions on this planet. And we know now that architecture is kind of the new geography. So it's very important to say right now that architecture has to be something different and not to always separate architecture and nature. So this is a book that we published a couple of years ago, I think 1.5 years, which is Hosting Life, Architecture as an Ecosystem, which shows our research and all the projects we have built. And let's start really to go into the project with this first project we've done here, which is the School of Biodiversity in Boulogne, which is here under my mouse. That was a very important project for us because this was really part of a very dense neighborhood. So the question was, how do you create a school, a gymnasium, but another program which is really a living wall and then a big use terrace. So this is the school where the kids are, the recreation areas, exterior areas, has a normal school. Then you can see that this school is almost designed as a kind of an extruded landscape. And then suddenly, what happened if the kids can go up to the roof? And what happened if the roof is no more just a roof with all the technical stuff that has a roof, but suddenly becomes a landscape, suddenly become the meadows, suddenly becomes some really place where the kids can learn something different, because this is also what is very important with playing with a green roof, is not only for ecological reasons that we all know, keeping the rainwaters, reducing the heat islands and everything like this that we already know, but this is becoming a pedagogical tool, which is very important, for example, in this school. So can you imagine that this image is on the roof of a school where the kids can learn something, and also where the biodiversity can find another milieu, another place. Voilà. I really adore this image showing these kids almost in a forest, but this is in the density, and this is in the roof, on the roof of a building. And under this roof, you have this gymnasium with the typical urban life. So what we find really interesting is this merging between architecture, between landscape, between biodiversity, and we think that the future of architecture is this mixed. And what is also very special with this school is this green roof that you've seen, but this is also connected to the ground with this facade. And this is something we invented in the office a couple of years ago, working with Aurélien Huguet, which is a famous ecologue in France, is done. How do you create a facade that is becoming really a system, an ecosystem, a place where biodiversity can be found? So this is the analysis of the light, of the sun, of the height of this facade. And So this is the result. The idea is not to build, was not to build a green facade where you can find, that you can find easily in shopping centers or somewhere in Paris on some facade. It's really the idea to create a system with deepness, a system playing with water, because when you play with the idea of biodiversity and the idea of living, what is very important is that you have to deal with water, and architecture in the base is how to fight water, how to avoid water. So this is the first paradox, which was really, really interesting for us, is how do you play with this idea of slowing the path of the water on the building, especially on the facade. So the idea was really what you see on the links. It's to have this find like this old wall in the country, as I say, not typical very green facade. And then you see the path of the water here, where it comes down from one block to the other. Also, it was really so for the water, and then for the living. What kind of fauna goes to different heights? The insect, the pipistrelle, the birds, and everything like this. Because what what I was saying in the beginning of this presentation is, how do we change the scale of architecture? This is an image that everybody knows, at least every architect knows. It's the modular from Le Corbusier. When this architecture in the first third of the 20th century thinks that the only scale for the architecture is the human body, we think that maybe it's time to introduce different scales. And when you think facade for biodiversity, for birds, for insects, then suddenly a second scale is arriving. How for this, the cavicole, the passereau, the faucon, hirondelle, which are some French names of birds. How do you design their home? And this is very interesting because suddenly a new scale is coming. So these are the design of the blocks, the concrete blocks we put on the facade, which design is led by the path of the water, by the size of the holes for the nets and for everything like this. We had on this facade 1,500 different blocks, which are made on different drawings like this. And the result is this. I mean, this is a system. This had deepness, which is very interesting, we think, because in this idea of new architecture, now this is a new concept that we have. It's the path of the water. It's deepness. Deepness brings life. Like everyone knows that plants need roots. So, and fragility and time, because architecture, when you produce a project, everyone wants the result to be exactly at the 3D rendering you produced on the first stage. But architecture has to change now, and also with vegetation, we have to deal with time. So deepness, time, fragility are new concept of designing architecture with the idea of holding biodiversity. I really like these pictures you have now, because this is a work from Audrey Muratet, which is an ecologist also. That she came on the facade and was really searching all the species that was on the building. So this is kind of an herbarium of the project. What I really like is that this present the architecture in a new way of thinking. You have parts of the architecture. You have these different, like a David Hockney representation, almost fragmental of the project. But everyone, you see the architecture with the plant, with insect. And for us, that was really a shock, seeing the project through this kind of representation. So this is Audrey on the roof, searching every kind of plants. So what is interesting, when you finish a project like this, like Boulogne, what is for us very important is to monitor, how monitoring this kind of architecture. So this is a work we have done with the Regional Agency of Biodiversity. Audrey and Mark, when we really tried to monitor, they decided to study a lot of different green roofs around the neighborhood of Paris, which is very interesting because everyone speaks about green roof, but no one has really looked very deep how does it work. So different kind of depths and different kind of architecture. Say this is all in our, they gently accept that we published this in the book I showed you on the first time. It's the different kind of substrate, the different trace of metals, the different kind of but the biodiversity. So this is really a study because we think as architects that's now we have to bring this culture of integrating vegetation in the building technically. This will stop the eternal debate about greening or not architecture, about the idea of greenwashing. I think this is a false debate. The things we have really to think it. Let's study it. Let's be precise of what we can do, the depth of earth, the different kind of soil, and everything like this. So these are different research they've done. And then third things, what is also very interesting in the building is the idea of maintenance, because this is something we've done here with Pascal Dalix, Sophie de Ramon, and all the office was going into a meadow, a very old meadow near Paris for taking seeds. This is so this was really a very nice experience. And then when you take these seeds, coming back on the roof of the school, and then with the kids of the school, voila, we're working on the roof and then re-gardening the building, which is also very important for us because now the people are no more only users from building. In now time, a lot of people are users, like with an iPhone. You take a building and you are users. We think that it's very important that we are becoming again inhabitants, that we can work on a building, that we can be have an impact on the building. And we think that gardening a building, it's the first step of retaking control of our project. So these are pictures I really liked working on the roof of the project. And Aurélien and Delphine here are from the office working on the facade, reseeding the facade. This picture is incredible because here you have the birds coming out from the facade. You can see here the little holes with the nets and the birds coming out and the facade from the school. Very shortly, another project we have done in Ivry, around Paris also, another school with a very large green roof where the kids can go out learning something from the school. This was a student residence, and all this huge meadow coming out from the project. We like this plan because now designing the vegetation is becoming a work also for the architects. It's as important designing the plans for the plants than the architecture itself. So this is the outside landscape from every classroom. This is in Serre, the glass house on the roof where the kids can go. And we used also the vegetation have a filter for the sun. Voilà. So in the summer, you have a lot of plants filtering the sun. In the winter, of course, the sun can go in. So voilà, this was another project with all this layer here. It was finished a couple of years ago. The idea of renewal, very, very fast. It's a new project from the office we are working on with this idea of this new way of thinking. Is that how do you connect sol, mur, toiture, ground, facade, and roof? Because for biodiversity is not only having a look on the roof, but it's also this sequence, which is very important. How do you allow small biodiversity to climb on a building? Having a green roof at 30 meters high, it's good, but it's isolated. So the idea is really to connect them. This is a project we are doing in Paris, all in wood. Where do you have this micro landscape in every floor connecting to a urban agriculture roof? Where we had this discussion with a client where you can go from one balcony to the other through little doors, so that this landscape is not a gadget, is not a trick. It's part of the architecture. It's part of that. Every apartment have this micro landscape in the front, filtering the water coming down from the one floor to the other. And so the detail that we are working also with some Danish landscape architects, SLA, how do you, what kind of amount of earth you can have here? This is a wood project, metal wood project. So this is also interesting to see this. Another project with Connect Roof, Wall and Soil, which is a project in Vitry, logistic platform. When we had this horizontal park linking the ground with the roof, and then 10,000 square meters of urban gardening in the roof. We are starting the construction right now in a couple of months. So the ground, this is space where the plants can grow, reconnecting here. So this much like a horizontal park give to the city. This interstice here, this place between facade and the building, where you will have really a space for biodiversity. And it's just a quick show on the Montparnasse Tower we're renewing, where the question of the water is really pregnant, is really very important. How do you consider there is tons of water coming into the tower? So coming down from the facade to this garden here and to all these balconies on the back and to also the patios on the roof. So it's a winter garden, La Serre, on the top, and this suspended garden on the view of the city. So here in a skyscraper, this is not a huge amount of biodiversity, but playing with the water, playing with the air, with the elements, being able in a tower to open a window, to smell the air, this is something also working with the element. And to finish this presentation, a little word about the research we have here in the office, which feeds, of course, our buildings. It's research we have started with a couple of years ago. It's creating a new facade. I mean, Christelle was speaking about this. This is also something we are trying in this office. I showed you the project of Boulogne with these blocks, but there were no soil into this. Now we are trying to bring the soil into this new concept of facade with hosting, feeding, and structure isolating. That means that standard facade is really, you have a concrete wall and then you have insulation and then you have a second structure, and then this structure is holding steel panels and everything like this. This is only one materials doing everything. In concrete, in bricks, and in monomure brick, which are industrial terracotta. And so we started to design, to play, to say how does it work when you put some concrete and then some soil and then again concrete and you put it on the vertical, and how this could work. So it was really, we've done this first work with Cimex, which is a fabricant of concrete. And so we started to play with connection for the material. And for us, this is really architecture. This is not only research, this is not only for biodiversity, but suddenly new materials can happen. suddenly new way of thinking. And when you play also with this kind of vision, then the fields of creation can really open differently. And I would like to finish on this sentence, because I told me rather that I had 25 minutes. So I'm finished on this sentence from Colin Moorcraft in an article he was publishing in 1972, Designing for Survival, which is considered as the base, the foundator for permaculture. That means that each element should be capable of performing more than one function, and conversely, each function should be performable in more than one way. What does it mean? It means that for us in architecture, things cannot be only for one use. A balcony is for sunshade, is for users, is for plants, is for people. And then every time, one architectural stuff can be used for several destinations. This is really the future for us, for architecture.
Thank you very much, Frédéric. Any questions in the chat? Question from Indra Pur. What other disciplines are you working in your office, in your projects currently?
What you mean with disciplines? It's like the people working at the office?
Yeah, it's the people working at the office, yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of architects here. We are 80 people here at the office, a lot of architects. But we work a lot with ecologists and engineers outside of the office. And we are now creating a short landscape pull into the office. I don't want to be a landscape architect. I mean, this is not my formation, and you have really people doing this really well. But we think that we have to know more about how architecture can work with plants and biodiversity. And this is the only way we can be really credible, we can be really heard. It's knowing. And I think this is good to have different kind of people into the office. So I think this is a very good question, and this is what we want, what we try to do, bringing some landscape architects, maybe some ecologists inside of the office to really be able to create a new kind of architecture. Far from the cliche of green architecture and concrete architecture. Is like really trying to invent a different model.
And in terms of tools and methods you use, would you say that you used also a permaculture approach, but maybe in reference to the last quote you present?
Yes, this is a really good question. The principle of permaculture can be adapted for a lot of different art or tools. I mean, at the end, everybody thinks that permaculture is just agriculture, but that's not right. Permaculture is a way of designing. It's a way to think that everything you are using is in a connection with others. And if you think about this, that what I was saying, that it's for the tool, we try really to work with that every project of architecture can answer a lot of different questions. That's what I was also showing to you at the beginning. Le déjà là, already there, asking yourself, what is on the site I am looking? The second one is really the common for people, for how an architecture can be really a place where people can be together, and also the living. So when you really try to answer a lot of questions and not only a few ones, because where you have a command in architecture, your client is always coming to you with say, I want this amount of square meter of office, boom. And so this is so small, other question. We have to do the job, but then you have really to open very wide the conception. And this is a way to think that about permaculture, that there is a cycle of life which is not only led by one problem. I don't know if I'm very clear at this stage, but try to answer the question.
Thank you. And there are two other questions about the facades. So the first one is, did you have a planned budget to follow the evolution of the facades? For instance, to count the different species or to maintain the vegetation on the facade. And the second one, which is quite related, is about soil. How do you facilitate the soil maintenance within the facade?
The first question is if I had the budget for the maintenance, that's it?
Yes.
No, we didn't. So this is really something that we have done with the office. I mean, when we finished the school, we went to the city, and saying them, come on, this is a perfect tool. We have to monitor it. We have to work on it. So it's really a decision from the office to create this. The people that you saw on the roof, gardening it, these are the architects from the office. So no, this is really the things that we have launched inside the office with Aurélien Huguet to work on this project. But I think we should, and also a lot of students are testing and monitoring this whole thing, because this was the first experimentation. I don't say this is a perfect solution. No? This was really kind of experimentation. So now we are really testing and taking back the information to create the next project. For the soil, what was the question again?
What is being done to facilitate soil maintenance in the facade with vegetation?
In the facade?
Yeah.
The question of the soil is very important. What kind of soil this is? Is this the soil that you found on the place where you are creating the building? Is this a soil you are bringing from somewhere else? Is this an artificial soil that you create with waste? So first, this is really the question of what kind of soil do you need, and then the second one is when the last research we have done, when you put soil into a block of facade, then the question is good, because this is really the question of the regeneration of this soil. How do you feed this soil? So this is why this is very important to have the contact between the roof and between the ground. That this thing is not cutted on the top and on the back, but this thing is really in connection with the ground and then the roof terrace. So there is, when you have the connection, then you have the possibility of the life and all the minerals and everything like this to travel in the facade. That is really what we want to create. Otherwise, you have to, every 2 years or something like this, then refeed your wall. But we really try, what we tried in these things is that regarding the nature is, and as a example for biomimetics, is trying to create the most autonomous systems that is possible, without watering too much, without going on the facade every years or every 2 years. So this is creating something that is really in a cycle of the life.
Thank you very much for this very inspiring presentation.